you perform an autopsy in this case?
I did.
Okay. And so let me...
Judge, before we get too far, I have no questions as to qualifications of this witness.
And at this point, the state would ask the court to deem Dr. Brown an expert in forensic pathology.
We have no objection based on what I've heard.
He'll be so qualified.
Thank you. So, do you need a copy of your report to go over this?
I stuck one in my pocket.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Use
Well,
that.
don't read from it. I just want to make sure you have it in front of you in case you need
Okay.
it.
What if I want to refresh my memory?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we'll handle that if we need
All
to.
right.
So you received a body in this case, did you not?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall the name?
No, off the top of my head. The deceased's name was Karter Ambrose.
How old was he?
He was 2 years and 10 months.
So you performed a full autopsy on him, correct?
That's correct.
Is an autopsy on a child different than an adult?
Well, we look at everything on a child, but we will look for things that maybe a child has, as a child would not normally be able to say to their parents or to their caretakers. So we look for signs of injury on children that are nonverbal, or they're one of the degree that they could talk to somebody and tell them how they were hurt or how they were injured, or what was happening with them. We usually get that from parents, and whether they had high fever, whether they had vomiting, and things like that. But we look for all these things, especially in a child, because we want to make sure that we cover all our bases as far as like injury and pathology.
Okay. And you say you're looking for injury, stuff like that, right?
Correct.
Do you document that?
We do.
How do you do that?
We do the photographs, and I document it in my report.
All right, so I have what's previously been shown to defense counsel states exhibits 2 through 11.
Mm-hmm.
Can you look at these real quick?
Sure.
You recognize them?
I do.
What are they?
These are photos taken at autopsy of this individual.
Okay. And are they a fair and accurate representation of the individual or this child at the time you perform the autopsy?
They are.
Do they appear to have changed or altered in any way?
No, and we have our markers in the pictures. When we take a picture of anything, we have the case number of that individual, and it's in the photograph, so that we can show that this was our picture that we took.
And Your Honor, the state would offer an evidence states exhibits 2 through 11.
They're admitted with the objection continuing.
So I think you said something about a number, right? So I'm going to, with the court's permission, put this on the overhead.
Right.
And yeah, you can turn around and measure. So is that the number that you're talking about?
Yes, this is an identification photograph. Everybody that comes to the office, they get an identification photograph. It's just a placard and their face shot.
So when you, this is kind of the beginning of the stage, right?
This is right at the beginning of the autopsy.
And so when you were getting ready to perform your autopsy, did you have any impressions as to kind of what may have caused the death or any backstory on why he was there?
As far as the backstory goes, we were told that it was taken to his family pediatrician because he had been having breathing troubles and had to get pediatrician. He was unresponsive, so the pediatrician began resuscitative measures while he waited for EMS, who then, I guess, took him to the hospital.
And so I guess it was your impression that maybe you were looking at some kind of respiratory problem?
That's the impression that we were given at the beginning, was that this would this sound like a child with some type of inflammatory awareness.
And when you performed your autopsy, did you find any evidence that there was some kind of disease, respiratory disease?
No, we did not.
Okay. What did you find?
We found, well, first of all, an external examination, we found a lot of injury on the body. And with the recent injury, there was nothing there, like such as a scab. It would have been, I would describe that as an older or remote injury, because it's been already scabbed. These injuries were all within a recent time frame. There weren't hours between now. So then I just note those, and I note those on the body.
Okay, so what external injuries did you look at?
We saw some abrasion. Abrasion is just a scraping of the skin. We saw abrasion around the nose here. We saw some contusion, which is bruising around the corner of the mouth and on the inside of the lips. I'd have to look at the report, but we also
So if you need to look at your report, go ahead.
Right nostril is a red abrasion. That's the way I describe abrasion. If it's an older abrasion, they dry up. Eventually they become a scab. But if they dry, there's no fresh hemorrhage or anything, and it has a kind of a brown color to it. When I describe it as red, that means that's from either the contusion, if it's a contusion, or it's from the abrasion, it's the hemorrhage from an abrasion. This was, I had an abrasion on the right upper lip, an abrasion on the left upper lip, and an abrasion on the mucosal surface, which is the inside of the surface of the lower lip, of the lower lip. So that's a contusion on the inside of the lip. There were a couple brown, red, blue contusions, which are recent.
Where were they?
Oh, this was on the left side of the face. Some injuries, contusion. A small contusion on the right chest, adjacent to the sternum, next to the breastbone. A round red contusion on the right upper abdomen, along the costal margin, which is right where your rib cage, if you feel your rib cage, that's the costal margin. Blue-green discoloration on the abdomen, that's another contusion. Red contusion on the abdomen, overlying the umbilicus, which is your belly button. A squared red abrasion, a couple of them, on the underside of the scrotum. So just underneath the scrotum. And a couple small linear red abrasions on the right mid-abdomen, so the middle of the abdomen.
So I'm going to publish State's Exhibit 3. If you can look at
Sure.
it behind you. So what are we looking at in this picture?
This is the your point.
I didn't know.
Unfortunately, the laser pointer does not work very well
Okay.
on my new fancy TV screen. So
If you
feel
need-
free to stand
Yeah,
up,
stand.
doctor,
If
if
you
you
need
need to, but I want you to speak up real
Oh, I
loud
will. Okay.
for the jury.
All right, I will. This is a contusion around the cheek here. This is some dermatitis. It's not really, it looks worse than it is. It's not really, this is some kids get that chafing. But this is the contusion. That's a red contusion right there.
So let me just focus on that
Sure.
contusion that you're
Sure.
talking about.
Sure.
When you say contusion, what do you mean?
A contusion, I'm sorry, is a bruise.
A bruise? Okay. So
It's the blood vessels, under a bruise, the blood vessels have broken, but they have not broken the surface. So then this coloration you see is the hemorrhage underneath.
could that contusion that you're referring to in this photo on his cheek be some kind of reaction to something else, like an allergic reaction?
No, that's not.
That's not an allergic reaction? And what are we looking at in stage 5?
These are the contusions I talked about on the upper lip. This is the mucosal surface of the inside of the lip, and that's a contusion on the inside of the inside.
Okay. Now let me ask you this. So the CPR is performed on this child. When you're doing an autopsy, do you look for signs or injuries that could be a result of CPR?
Yes.
Okay. And what would those be?
Well, in adults, it's usually fractured ribs
Okay.
from compressions, because the EMTs work them very hard. And but in a child, most of the time, we don't see injury because the child, especially if it's someone under the age of 4 or 5 years old, their lungs or their rib cage is still very pliable. So you can put a lot of pressure on that without causing any breakage or anything like that. I didn't see any signs under the sternum or around the ribs of hemorrhage.
Okay. And I didn't quite ask you the question I meant to ask.
Okay.
So oftentimes when people are trying to keep someone alive, do they give like trachea? Do they try to get oxygen to them?
Right.
Okay. And do you look for injury from that?
Oh, yes, we do. Yes, well, he had an endotracheal tube somebody put in, which I can't just count that as not being part of the injury on the lip there.
Okay.
Up there, not so much, but here, that's in the same place where they replaced the endotracheal tube.
The upper lip, not so much?
Not so much on the upper lip, no, because the tube's going in here and down.
Okay. And as part of that, so what is this little part right here?
This,
Yes.
that's the frenulum.
Frenulum? Okay.
And that has a little bit of contusion on it, but that, again, that could be possibly from the endotracheal tube.
Okay. So I'm going to publish now States Exhibit 6. I apologize for the glare. I'm trying my best here.
Okay.
What is being depicted in this photograph?
On this, I'm just showing, or we're just showing the different. There were some areas of bruising or contusion on the abdomen. That's what these little areas are right here, around, and this is on the right side of the abdomen right here. And that's where those injuries are. This is the costal margin, or the edge of the rib cage would be right down along here.
Okay. So you said areas plural.
Yeah, there's several.
Several. So can you specifically point in that picture to where they are?
This I won't need. Red contusion on the right upper chest adjacent to sternum. So that'd be this one right by that. There's a well-healed scar there. It has nothing to do with this. But it's right beside that well-healed scar is a contusion on that one. There was one on the midline abdomen along the upper margin. That would be this right up here. Those areas right there. There's another rib contusion on the left upper abdomen along the costal margin. So that would be this contusion. This is the costal margin right here. So it'd be right in that area there. That's what that discoloration is. And then the other sort of other injuries of the body.
Yeah. So, and this is States Exhibit 8.
This just shows some of the same areas of hemorrhage around the umbilicus, the stability button. There's some contusions around there that I measured and took photographs of.
So how many injuries are to that that you look at? Six
different.
And you found other external injuries, correct?
Yes, there was abrasion on the underside of the scrotum.
Okay, and this is States Exhibit 10.
Yeah, this is just, this is an abrasion, not a contusion. It can be contused abrasion. It can have an abrasion that also has hemorrhage around it, under the skin. And this is the abrasion though, right here. And then there's some contusion around that. But this is the injury that's right underneath the underside of the scrotum, which is right, what they call the peritoneal area, right underneath between your butt box in your storeroom or mail.
So you can have a seat.
Oh,
Okay, sorry, thank you.
sorry.
All right, so we just talked about the external injuries that you observed, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And as part of the autopsy that you performed on the child, did you find any internal injuries?
We did.
What kind of internal injuries did you find?
The major internal injury that I saw was a laceration of the liver. And I'll refresh my memory here with how long it was. A 2.5 inch laceration of the liver at the attachment of the falciform ligament, which is where liver has a right lobe and a left lobe, and there's a ligament that goes right between them. It's right next to the largest lobe of the liver. There's 2 lobes. Largest was on the right.
Now, I think you said it was either the main or the major injury that you located.
There was other hemorrhages in here.
Well, then let's talk about those.
Okay,
You
sure.
want
There
all of the internal injuries that you found?
Okay, sure. There was a hemorrhage on the scalp. When we reflect the scalp, what we do, we reflect the scalp means that we open it. In other words, we make a cut across from one side of the head to the other, and then we take the scalp and pull it forward this way and pull it forward and back. And then that in the back right, it was the back right posterior parietal, which is back in this area. There was hemorrhage in the scalp there, so that was indicate that there was some type of trauma in that area. Something caused that hemorrhage in the scalp. Also, there were there was also at the vertex. There was some hemorrhage at the vertex, which is the top of the scalp. The anterior abdominal wall muscles, in other words, your 6-pack or whatever you want to call those muscles in the front, the rectus abdominis muscles, there was hemorrhage in those. So that's from some time of trauma to those muscles that would cause them to bleed. The tissue in the mesentery. What the mesentery is the fat, in your small and large bowel, kind of goes like this, fish like back and forth through your lower abdomen. And between that, what holds that together is mesentery fat. And there's a lot of blood vessels in there. Well, there was hemorrhage in these blood vessels and in the fat of the small and large bowel. And then the laceration of the liver was that was the major injury that I saw. And about 200 ml of blood, which is
When you say ml, what do you mean?
oh, milliliters, I'm sorry, 200 milliliters of blood, which is probably the size of the amount we would hold in a cola can. There was hemorrhage in the pancreas, which is right there with the small, right next to the small bowel. There was hemorrhage in the testicular cord, which is the cord that holds the testicles. So near the same area as that abrasion was. And there was some serosal hemorrhage of the intestines. Serosal surface of the intestines is just the top surface, and there was some hemorrhage in that. Also from trauma.
All right, so this is State's Exhibit 11.
Okay,
What is that?
that's this is it's the right lobe of the liver. The liver sits right up here under your diaphragm, or right below your diaphragm. And this falciform ligament is this thing right here. And it's right in the middle between these 2 lobes. Like I said, this is the right lobe of the liver is large, and it tapers and gets smaller over this side. But there was trauma to this part of the stomach that caused that to tear. The liver is a pretty solid organ, but it's still very friable, meaning you can tear it or push into it easily.
Okay.
So it doesn't take much force.
Sit back down. So as part of your role as a medical examiner in performing the autopsy, do you determine if there's a method and manner of death?
We do. That's our job is to determine cause and manner.
Okay. And what information do you use in order to make that determination, provide that opinion?
Well, partly is we base it upon the coroner and law enforcement because they would tell us what circumstance we brought this person brought him to us to be the autopsy. The other thing is then we take into consideration what injuries we see, and is it something that would be consistent with one incident, or could it be consistent with several different incidents, especially with chopping?
So when you say incident, what do you mean?
I mean, was it just one thing? Was it just a lacerated liver, or was there other things that we can document that were? So that's our part of our job, is to determine all these different things, whether what one or which ones contributed to this person's demise.
Okay. And did you find just one thing?
The main thing was hemorrhage was the main reason. The laceration of the liver, hemorrhage, and the hemorrhage in the abdominal, the intestines, things, that all collectively contributed to that.
Okay. You said collectively.
Yeah.
But there's evidence of other injuries, right?
The injuries, the external injuries, were all ones that we would consider. We would consider those. We'd look for something, especially in the shop. We look to see what kind of injuries they have. When children, a lot of the injuries that we see on a child are not necessarily in this case, but when children will see where they're a toddler or something, they may have scrapes and things like that from walking into furniture or falling down or things like that. But we don't see a lacerated liver with that.
Okay. Well, when you performed the autopsy, did you find any of those bruises or scrapes on any of his externals?
Well, not on the extremities. It was mostly on his mouth and his abdomen.
Okay. So what, in your opinion, was the cause of death?
It was a blunt force trauma of the abdomen and the liver.
Okay. And was that laceration of the liver?
Correct.
Blunt force impact?
Correct.
Laceration of the liver? Okay. And what was the manner?
The manner of death we determined to be homicide.
Okay. So you said that you based this on kind of the information that you gathered plus the autopsy, whatever you find.
Right.
Autopsy. Is this a scenario where it could be an accident?
In this case, no.
Okay. Why do you say that?
These injuries are ones that it doesn't support an accident. If a lacerated liver is something I see like a car accident. A lacerated liver is serious. I mean, that's a major injury. And the story that we were told, or the information we were provided, didn't indicate that this child had been in any kind of situation where he would get an injury to his liver that devastating.
And you say it's a major injury, and I think you kind of put it in the context of a car accident.
That's
Are you referring kind of to the force that's needed?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. How much force do you think is needed to lacerate the liver?
Well, it would take a significant amount because the liver is somewhat protected by the abdomen, so you've got to put some force onto that. And the reason I say car accident is because we do see that in car accidents. We see a lot more injuries than just that in a car accident. But this was directed, focused on that abdomen and that liver. In other words, this was to get that falling down on your belly. You're not going to get a lacerated liver. Falling out of a bunk bed, you're not going to get a lacerated liver. The only way you would get that is if you fell onto something, and it would have to be something significant that was hard, that enough that whenever you fell on it, or were high enough to fall on it, and hit it hard enough to push in far enough to lacerate your liver. We don't see that in kids.
And is it fair to say that if you did fall off a bunk bed
Okay.
and land on a traffic cone, you would see one impact?
Well, yeah, if we're talking about like one of those plastic cones or something like that, and that would have to, in my mind, that plastic cone would maybe not even, but that type of shape, it gives you a focus point is the top of that cone. If you're falling from a height and you hit that, possibly when deep enough through the bowel and hit the liver and lacerate it. But it just falling from the bunk bed or something like that, I wouldn't expect to see a lacerated liver.
Could this potentially have been caused by CPR?
It's unlikely. The reason I say that is because the CPR that from what I understand, that was performed was done at the pediatrician's office. And a pediatrician would know not to push on the abdomen to to do CPR.
So when you're doing CPR,
You push it on the chest over the line of the sternum.
so let me ask you this. So it took a while for this report to be generated, right? Your autopsy report.
It takes a little while, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I think this one probably took longer than normal.
Well, we had to wait for toxicology results, and we had to
Okay.
wait for histology results,
Okay.
which is looking at tissue under the microscope.
Okay. And so, I think, were you able to determine the time of death?
No.
Or, excuse me, let me rephrase that. A time for when the injury occurred.
I can't give you, it wasn't days. It was probably hours.
Well, and that's what I'm referring to. So do you recall a number of months later that there was a meeting with some people where you guys went over it and
Well,
discussed
I went over with the chief there.
With the chief.
The chief medical examiner. His name is Jonathan Eisenstadt.
Okay.
Yeah.
And at that point, was there a time frame for the injury?
I would have to look back. I'm not sure. Jonathan's very good at what he does, but I don't remember.
No, that's okay.
He gave us
That's
the time.
okay. But you just recall that there was another
yeah,
medical
there's-
examiner
right,
who
this
was
was
kind of
important.
involved.
Right.
in
This was an important
investigation.
case to look at very carefully. So I included the chief medical examiner, and I don't remember if there's anybody else. But we went over the case, and I'm sure if he came up with a timeline, I just don't remember it.
All right, I don't have anything further at this time.
Mr. Bird, please review.
Thank you, Howard. Dr. Brown, good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Jeff Crew here, representing Ms. Davis in this matter. Let me, some of the things you just talked about, you know, the autopsy report that you signed off on was several months later, is that correct?
I'm going to look, but you're probably right. It usually takes a while.
Okay, the death was on November the 17th of 2020, and you signed off on this report on September the 29th of 2021, is that correct?
We're here. Yes, that appears to be correct.
That would have been over 10 months later, is that right?
Correct.
And you, in answering the questions of Mr. Dwayne, you just mentioned that a lot of times you waited for the crime lab reports as far as toxicology and things of that nature, is that correct?
That's correct.
And you're aware, are you not, that the toxicology report that was done by Amanda Cook was completed on December the 16th of 2020. Do you have any recollection of that?
Well, I don't have that in front of me, but that sounds right.
Okay, so it was about a month after the death, is that right?
That would be about right.
All right. And then there was another report done by Carla Turner, forensic toxologist in your office, that was completed on December the 23rd of 2020. Does that sound about right?
If that's on the report, yeah. That's
Okay.
fine.
So, were there any other reports that you were waiting on in a period of time from basically Christmas of 2020 until you signed off on your report at the end of September of the next year, 9 months or so later?
Not that I recall.
Okay. And you had mentioned that I guess your superior was Dr. Eisenstadt, is that correct?
Yes, he was the chief at the time.
And I guess from time to time you met with Dr. Eisenstadt concerning the cause of death in this matter.
I don't know how many times we've met. He is. You have to remember, I live in Ohio, so I come down 1 week a month, either Macon or Pooler, Savannah, to do cases. So whenever I would be able to see him, would only be whenever I go up to headquarters.
Okay.
And if you say we have several meetings, I'll take your word for it, but I don't remember.
And Mr. Dwayne just asked you some questions about when you met with Dr. Eisenstadt and other people in your office later on, in September of 2021, to go ahead and get this autopsy report prepared. Is that right?
Yes.
And this was something that was done online with you and Dr. Eisenstadt and the district attorney's office here and the sheriff's department here, Houston County Sheriff's Department. Do you recall that?
And I was here for that. I remember meeting with Eisenstadt, but I don't remember meeting online. If that's the case,
Well, I mean, do you remember talking to the district attorney's office about your findings?
not until recently.
Okay.
Because this was a case from 5.5 years ago, so.
Sure. Okay. But nonetheless, you wouldn't disagree that your office, being the GBI Division of Forensic Sciences, talked with the district attorney's office just immediately prior to you issuing or signing off on your autopsy report. Is that right?
That I don't know. I don't know who they talked to before I signed off on my report.
Okay. But you recognize that it was several months later.
Yes, this is during COVID too. Whenever I would, so
Sure.
when I came down, there were times of the lab to be closed, and
Right.
so,
And there was there ever any concerns that COVID may have been involved in this child's death?
no.
Just a second there. Dr. Brown, let me just ask you this. I take it that the autopsy was done within a day or so of the child dying. Is that correct?
That would be correct.
And this was done where? At the facility in Macon?
It was. Yeah, Central Lab. That was it.
Okay, a central labs in Macon or Dry Branch actually?
Correct. Dry Branch, yes, that's the town or whatever.
And who all, as far as the photographs that were taken, who took those photographs? Did you take them or did?
No, I directly who took them. They were taken by our autopsy assistants. There's what they call death investigation specialists and forensic pathology assistants, and they're the ones who take all photographs.
All right. But in any event, and you were told originally that the child had some asthma problems. Is that right? Some respiratory problems.
Yeah, suppose they had breathing problems, and the story that we were told was that the child had breathing problems, that the boyfriend, caretaker, said the breathing problems, contacted the mother. Mother said, he said you gave him breathing treatment, and he gave him another breathing treatment, evidently that didn't work. She said take him to the pediatrician.
All right. Now, you testified as to that you noticed some injuries to the top of the head or the back of the head. Is that right?
Yeah, some scalp hemorrhage.
Okay.
There was no injury to the brain or the skull.
Okay. But none of that contributed to the child's death.
That shouldn't have, no.
I mean, not at all. I mean, that's just typical in the child's existence. Is that fair?
I don't know that it wasn't part of the continuum, whether the child was receiving blunt force trauma at the same time. I don't know. But no, the scalp hemorrhage itself would not have caused this child's death.
All right. Now, in your report, or there was some talk about this child that the injuries could have occurred anywhere from within 24 hours to 72 hours prior to the child's demise. Is that correct?
And that was in my report?
Well, I mean, do you recall Dr. Eisenstadt telling you that was
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay at this point.
I don't think Dr. Eisenstadt's conclusions can come in. You can ask this witness if he reached that conclusion or not.
all right? Well, did you reach that conclusion that it was within 24 to 72 hours?
No, I didn't put a time on it.
Did you put a time on it?
I mean, it was recent, but it was not, I can't tell you how many hours.
I mean, could it have been an hour before the child's death?
Doubtful.
Okay. Could it have been a week before?
No, because some of the injuries would have healed.
They were.
Some of the injuries would have been in the process of healing. So we wouldn't have seen all the injury that we saw. They'd all been scabs or some, like some of the injuries in the mouth, the injuries on the body would have healed, or they've been in the process of healing. In other words, scabbing over. So you don't get a scab the next day.
Okay, but did any of the injuries that she showed around the mouth there, did that contribute to the child's death?
No.
Okay. I'm talking about a lacerated liver.
That's correct.
Okay. And I understand that there's a term called lingering liver bleed. Is that a statement?
That word, I've never heard that term.
Okay. But we don't know when the injury occurred, do we?
I do not.
I mean, it's something that could have happened. As far as the liver is concerned, is that something that could have happened within, say, 6 hours of the child dying?
The liver was lacerated and it bled, and it just depends on how fast it bled. I don't know how long it took for it to happen.
You don't have an educated guess as to, if it was an hour before, 6 hours before.
Sessions overruled.
Do you have an educated opinion as to when it could have happened?
No.
Or how it could have happened?
It happened from blunt force trauma.
Okay. What is blunt force trauma? From a car wreck, you've already established that. But
And they didn't tell me he was in a car wreck.
okay. All right. It could have happened from someone hitting someone with a baseball bat.
Oh, absolutely could.
Okay.
Significant trauma to the abdomen caused the laceration of his liver.
And you don't know how that significant trauma occurred,
I do not.
or any suppositions now.
I do not.
Just a second, John, please. And once again, as far as the liver is concerned, would there be any, besides the laceration, any other injuries to the liver?
There was only the laceration that I saw.
Okay. And your testimony was that you saw some other bruising on the outside of the body, is that correct?
Yes.
Would that be consistent with the lacerated liver?
The ones on the contusions or bruising on his abdomen most certainly could have, because it also contused and bruised the inside of his internal organs. So that's where the blunt force trauma to the abdomen, and that's where the liver is located.
If a person has suffered from a lacerated liver, is there any way of telling or showing as to where the blood would exit the body? Would it exit the body through urine, through bowel movement of some sort?
No.
No. Okay. Would blood come out of someone's mouth or nose or ears or anything like that?
It's in a confined space. The liver's in the peritoneal cavity. That's a cavity. There's no conduit out to the outside world from there, and it would stay in the cavity and loculate or collect in soft tissue like the adipose tissue, the blood, or the fatty tissue that surrounds these organs, and that's what we had.
And it could stay there for days.
It would usually, if it stayed there for days, it would have been clotted. And eventually it would clot. This blood was not clotted.
Just a second, John. Let me ask this question. If there evidence that in the hours or days previous to the child's demise that would there be, could you infer from your opinion that the child would have thrown up blood or vomited blood?
No. I mean, the vomiting from being of a blow to the stomach is common for anybody. Okay, but I don't know. I guess I don't know what the question is. That if he threw up, it wouldn't be blood. It would be whatever's in the stomach contents.
Okay, but it would, I guess it would have nothing to do with the lacerated.
The liver is in the same cavity as the bowel and the stomach, but they don't interconnect in any way. In other words, the liver tears, the blood it comes out, goes out and into the tissue and muscle and the fatty tissue around it, and it will stay there.
But have you seen situations happen where there's been a lacerated liver for a longer period of time than 24 to 72 hours?
Where it's been longer than that?
Yes.
Not being treated? No, I haven't seen that.
Thank you.
Anything else, Mr. Dwayne?
No, you don't.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. You are free to go stay as you wish. You may be excused.
All right, thank you.